Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to start very soon, so please take your seats in the room. I believe it's time for us to start now. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this side event of the 37th Governing Council of the Common Fund for Commodities, titled Best Practices in Poverty Alleviation, Empowering Smallholder Farmers to Drive Climate Resilient and Sustainable Commodity Value Chains. For the third consecutive year, we are hosting this event in a cost-neutral manner, driven by one simple conviction: poverty cannot wait. Even without dedicated funding, we believe this dialogue must continue. Here in The Hague, the world's capital of peace and justice, global attention is devoted to human rights, international crimes, chemical weapons, and the rule of law. Yet, the issue that affects the larger number of human lives, poverty, remains largely absent from the city's global agenda. The CFC hopes that this side event will soon receive the support of the City of The Hague, allowing it to grow into a signature global platform on poverty, completing the city's identity as a beacon of justice. Smallholder farmers remain the backbone of global food systems, yet they face rising barriers, from limited access to finance and growing climate shocks to increasingly complex compliance requirements such as the EU Deforestation Regulation, EUDR. Without adequate support, such regulations risk excluding smallholders from global markets. By best practices in poverty alleviation, we highlight real, field-tested solutions that improve incomes, resilience, and market access. Today's exchange aims to inspire replication and scaling across countries and commodities. Although the regulation, EUDR, originated in Europe, its implications reach far beyond its borders. For millions of smallholder farmers across Africa, Asia, and Latin America, the EUDR may determine whether they remain connected to or excluded from international markets. This is not merely a compliance issue. It is a question of livelihoods, fairness, and sustainable development. The study that the talks that we will provide later will provide critical evidence based on for policymakers and producing countries worldwide, highlighting the urgency of support, transition pathways, and shared responsibility so that no farmer stays behind. Before we begin, allow me to briefly share a few housekeeping notes. As you noticed, we are convening this session in a hybrid format. You are all experienced by now, 4 years in this role. We don't think we have much to say there, but there are a few issues that I would like to raise with you. As this is an open event, there is free seating in the hall. There are no country plates on the table. Participants online will not be renamed. There will be an opportunity for a Q&A once all presenters have been made. Those in the room who would like to ask a question are requested to raise their arm. Those online should post their question addressed to everyone in the chat box of the Zoom meeting, and this will be read out from there. Kindly note that the CFC will be taking photos throughout today's event. These photos will be used for both our website and social media posts. And we have a time constraint for today's session. This meeting was supposed to start in 2 o'clock, but we have a hard stop at 4:45. We kindly ask all speakers and participants to keep this in mind so that we may proceed smoothly and conclude on time. It is both an honor and a privilege to welcome you to this special event where we shine a spotlight on the transformative practices shaping sustainable and inclusive commodity value chains. We now turn to the policy perspectives from our member countries, highlighting how national frameworks and regulatory approaches are shaping sustainable and inclusive commodity value chains. And with this, it is my pleasure to invite Mr. Enrique Sur Moraes, Deputy Head of Mission, Embassy of Brazil to the Netherlands. Sir, you have the floor.
Good afternoon. Thank you to our moderator. I'd like to extend a special thanking note to the CFC for organizing this panel, to commend for the leadership of the fund. And in this regard, I'd like to congratulate Ambassador Bilal for the efforts that he has been deploying at the helm of the fund. And it is an honor and a privilege to share with you the experiences of Brazil in some of the practices that we have been developing domestically in the field of poverty and hunger alleviation, and how Brazil has been trying to translate these efforts to the international level. I'll try to stick to the time. There's a lot to be said, but I'll try to stick to the time. And I would ask if we could move to the next slide. Thank you. So it's, as I mentioned, it's an honor, and we're very happy and thrilled to be here with you to share a number of practices that we have been using in Brazil that, as you will hopefully see at the end of the presentation, have delivered concrete and expressive results in terms of hunger and poverty alleviation in Brazil. If we could move to the next slide. So basically, in today's presentation, I'll provide you an overview of some of the elements of what we could call Brazil's social protection architecture, both in institutional terms and more specifically in terms of the policies that we have been rolling out to provide for concrete results in alleviating poverty and hunger in Brazil, and social inclusion and economic inclusion, as you will see. If we could move to the next slide. One of the, and I'll start with this brief institutional point that I think it's important to highlight because it will show in our conclusions. One of the key takeaways from the Brazilian experience, and this is something that we see in the current government, which is in power since 2023, is that most of the actions by the government at the federal level in this area, they are coordinated by one ministry, which is the Ministry for Social Development, who has overseen the panoply of policies that we will be talking here, not only in coordination with other agencies at the federal level, but also at the level of the states and municipalities, because as you will be able to see, most of these policies, they are deployed by a network of actors, both in the public sector and in the private sector. Next, please. So the key approach policy approach for our policies is that when we're talking about poverty and hunger alleviation, we should approach these goals in an integrated manner. We're not just working on goals of bringing food to the table, it's that, but much more than that. You cannot tackle poverty by focusing only on one goal. It has to be an overarching set of policies that address the problem of poverty, because poverty is a multifaceted challenge. Next, please. So the policies that we'll see here, they will be translated at the international level, and for this goal, Brazil basically took advantage of the fact that in the past years, Brazil has been at the presidency of important international events, such as the G20 and more recently the COP30, to advance the connections between the social goals of alleviating hunger and poverty and other broader economic and environmental goals. We'll get to that in a moment. Next, please. So let me start by one, I would say, omnibus set of policies under whose umbrella we have been providing for a number of specific policies that have the purpose of alleviating hunger and poverty. This omnibus policy is called the Brasil Sem Fome plan, which is Brazil without hunger. So under this overarching policy, we have inscribed a number of different policy objectives that have as, let's say, a unifying goal, that of taking people away from poverty, including people socially and economically. Not economically. I will go through some of the key goals of this omnibus policy, and then I'll break down into two examples of specific policies that I think will flesh out the point that I'm making here. Next slide, please. So as I said, this is the main framework for the policies that we are deploying to combat hunger and food insecurity. If we could move to the next slide. The Brazil Without Hunger plan is structured along three pillars. Next slide. The three pillars focus on, number one, addressing the challenge of access to income and the goal of poverty reduction, and of course, bringing dignity and citizenship to people. This is, I would say, the goal that is more directly focused on addressing hunger, but it's more than that. And if we could move to the next slide. The policies in Brazil to provide for hunger alleviation, they are associated with other policies that seek to, among others, bring about social and economic inclusion with healthcare, access to education. So it's a whole set of policies that are associated and that in the end link the goal of poverty reduction to what is ultimately the main purpose of these policies, which is to break the poverty cycle. We realize that you cannot drive people out of poverty simply by putting food on the table. You have to give people conditions to break the poverty cycle so that the future generations of people who have been assisted by these policies, they can move to the next level and not rely anymore on these policies. And some of the policies that I will tell you about today, they have been successful in achieving just this purpose. And next slide. The third pillar of the Brazil Without Hunger plan is one that seeks to go beyond the people that are, let's say, the target of these policies and involve the broader society by building awareness and galvanizing support, both in the public sector and in the private sector, for rolling out these policies. Next, please. So, before I get into the policies, let me just show you the results of the past 2 years. In the past 2 years, if we can move, the results of this set of policies that have not, let me just tell you, been originally introduced 2 years ago with the current government. They have been introduced 20 years ago when President Lula took office for the first time, and when the expertise in the government has been developed and these policies have been deployed. But only in the past 2 years, and that was one of the goals of President Lula when he came back to the presidency in 2023, was to remove Brazil from the hunger map of the UN, the FAO hunger map, and we did that. And in the past 2 years, 24 million people, that is more than 10% of the population of Brazil, have been removed from the threshold of hunger. These are people who have at least 2 meals a day now, when they didn't have 2 years ago. And 8.7 million people left extreme poverty since 2023. Next, please. So now I'm going to tell you a bit about two specific policies that I think they depict in concrete terms what the Brazil Without Hunger plan seeks to achieve. One of them is a flagship policy that is more than 20 years old, which is the Bolsa Familias, like a family stipend program, which is a conditioned cash transfer program that benefits currently around 20 million families in Brazil. So that's around 60 million people that benefit from this cash transfer scheme, which is much more than a cash transfer scheme. It is associated, the beneficiaries of the Bolsa Familia are people that have to comply with a number of conditionalities, among which demonstrably keep their children in school, keep the vaccination cards on schedule, among a number of other conditionalities. And I think Bolsa Familia, and specifically the conditionalities that are attached to it, they are emblematic of what I told you before about the goal of breaking the poverty cycle. By conditioning access to cash, which is not a lot of cash, but it makes a big difference for people that are benefited from the policy. By making sure that children have adequate health care, that have access to education, where many of them also eat. Many children go to school or have the stimulus to go to school because there is where they can have a meal. This is providing not only for poverty and hunger alleviation, but it's about enabling generations, future generations, to break the poverty cycle. And the Bolsa Familia, which now counts more than 20 years, has led to palpable results. Generations of people whose parents lived in poverty are already people who have college degrees, for example, and who do not rely on the program anymore. Next, please. I'm going to talk about the second program that I think is also very emblematic of this set of policies directed, multifaceted policies directed to taking people out of poverty. If we could move to the next slide, please. This is the PAA, the Food Acquisition Program. Basically, this is a government procurement program whereby the Brazilian government makes sure that it buys food from smallholders, from family farmers. So the idea, the concept behind this program, which is not really expensive, and let me just very briefly tell you that the Bolsa Familia, the benefits around 60 million Brazilians, costs around 1% of Brazil's GDP. It's not a lot of money for the impact that it causes. The PAA itself, for the past 2 years, has invested something in the range of $300 million to acquire food from smallholders, from family farmers, and to use this food for a number of goals, such as feeding children in schools, feeding people in what we're going to see now are solidary kitchens, which are places where people in vulnerable strata of the society go to eat. So with a policy such as the PAA, what we're basically doing is we are ensuring economic inclusion of small farmers, and the government only uses the money of this program to buy food from small farmers, no big farmers. So we make sure that these people have a guaranteed stream of income, while at the same time we guarantee access to food for people who need it. So we, in a quite affordable way, I would say. If we could move to the next slide, please. So the solidary kitchens that you see there, they are one of the examples of the beneficiaries of the food that is bought by the government. But it's, as I said, it's not only the kitchens, which are basically places where people, vulnerable people go to have their meals, but public hospitals, public schools, including the schools that children that benefit from Bolsa Familia attend. They're all supplied by food bought under the PAA. Next, please. So this is just to say that policies such as the Bolsa Familia and the PAA, they are symbolic of this multifaceted approach to tackling hunger and poverty in a multifaceted way. Next, please. Now, the experience that we have garnered in Brazil for over 20 years, we have been trying to convert them into cooperation policies and projects that we engage in. So we have, a few years ago, taken the PAA experience to some African countries as part of our portfolio of technical cooperation activities. So a number of African countries have benefited from cooperation projects in which Brazil would basically transfer this capability of putting together small farmers and public schools in schemes where the governments would buy food that would both ensure the farmers that they have had a buyer for their food, and children in schools that they have the food that they needed in schools. Now, as you know, Brazil was at the presidency of the G20 in 2024. And one of the flagship projects that I would say distinguished the Brazilian presidency was the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty. And under this alliance, which is much more than an initiative under which countries committed to provide funds, the idea is, among others, to share best practices. And best practices that could also, for example, benefit projects that are funded by the CFC, because many of them are technologies that have a universal appeal to them, that can be used elsewhere as well. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So now this number, the Global Alliance now encompasses a little more than 200 members, including 107 countries. So the members comprise not only countries, but also international organizations, such as, for example, the World Bank, which committed 25 billion in loans for projects that benefit from the experience of the Global Alliance. And even actors that are outside of the, let's say, that are in the third sector, let's put it this way. So it's a major initiative that draws on on our experience in Brazil, but not only that. The idea is basically to seek experiences from other countries as well, and ultimately to make sure that countries place hunger and poverty combat in the center of their agenda. Just as an anecdote, if you allow me, a few weeks ago at the World Food Forum, President Lula recalled the participants at the forum that if we used only 12% of what is deployed to buy weapons, we could address the hunger problem in the world. It's not a big effort, 12%. It's a lot of money, 12%, but obviously the priorities are not correct if we use more money to buy weapons and to arm ourselves than to address what is possibly one of the key challenges of our time, hunger. Next, please. So the G20 Global Alliance illustrates how Brazil sought to take to the G20 the agenda of poverty alleviation. But we're not only focusing on the G20 agenda, we also sought to highlight in the environmental debates and climate change debates the link between poverty, hunger, and climate change. And that is because, as we all know, sustainable development has three pillars. It's not just the environmental pillar. There's a social and there's an economic pillar. So if people who are supposed to be the custodians of forests, for example, they cannot make ends meet, then we lost the battle of fighting climate change. We have to give these people the conditions to find their livelihoods where they are. So we proposed a number of initiatives in the COP30, which took place last month in Belém, in Brazil, precisely to make sure and to engage other partners in this multifaceted agenda, which also includes environment. Next, please. So basically, the main takeaways, and I'm moving to my conclusion. Some of the lessons that we can draw from, at least we draw in Brazil, from our experience. Political will matters if you want to address poverty and hunger, alleviation. You can only address these challenges by using an integrated approach, because there are links between poverty to, as I mentioned just now, climate change, but you can also see links between poverty and war, poverty and terror. So as a government, you can only address these challenges if you have an integrated approach that gives people dignity, includes them socially, includes them economically. And obviously, international cooperation is essential because this is a global problem. It's not a problem that is confined to the borders of one individual country. Next, please. So it's for all these reasons that it's only fitting that we discuss this topic, and we're very proud to share with you some of these experiences precisely here at the CFC, which is a forum that has the mandate to advance this goal, and we hope our experiences can be useful in some way for the projects that are funded by the CFC. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Moraes, for sharing Brazil's perspective and also concrete national experience in advancing sustainable commodity value chains. Your insights underline how national policy, innovation, and long-term vision can come together and uplift producers and ecosystems. I would like now to invite His Excellency, Mr. Kumar Tuhin, Ambassador of India to the Kingdom of the Netherlands, for his brief remarks. Following the Ambassador's comments, the presentations of India will be delivered by Professor Ajay Bailey, Chair and Head of the Department of Human Geography and Planning of the Utrecht University. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Let me begin by conveying our very sincere appreciation to Ambassador Bilal for his leadership and our appreciation to the fund for the great work that it is doing. Today, what I would like to do is to share the story of India, the unyielding vision of 1.4 billion souls who are moving on this journey of poverty alleviation. Now, for this, we have Professor Ajay Bailey, who is Department of Human Geography and Planning of Utrecht University. He would be sharing his thoughts with us, and we will invite Professor Bailey to share not only the achievement that we have made, but also some of the challenges that we have faced and how we are intending to tackle these. So this is a actually journey in which 250 million people of India were lifted out of poverty from about 29-30% to about 11% in the last decades or so. So with these brief words, let me invite Professor Bailey to share his thoughts on this topic and share a footprint of our journey with you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Am I audible? I hope this thing works. Yes. Great. His Excellencies, it's a great honor to be presenting at this audience. Also to share the success stories that we have seen, and I would present some of the results. I'm a professor of international development studies, so I also bring in some of the research that we have conducted as part of these poverty. Could we have the slides, please? I would talk about India's poverty reduction initiatives and the success factors, and also talk about some of the challenges that we have faced, and I'll end with certain lessons that we can share from the Indian context. Next slide, please. So early this year, we got the UNDP's report together with Niti Aayog, that's our planning commission, which talked about the multidimensional poverty index. You will see here that between 2015 to 2016 to more recently 2019 to 2021, when the largest household study was conducted, that comes from the National Family Health Surveys, one of the largest representative surveys in India, or occasionally or originally in that sense also started as a demographic health surveillance unit. Here we see that the steep decline in poverty headcount ratio from 24, close to 25% to 14%. The fastest decline has been in the rural areas. The advantage of using this index is that it doesn't just look at income, it looks at deprivation. So it measures 10 such indicators or key indicators that focus on health, education, and standard of living. In addition to the global indicators, Niti Aayog, or Indian government, has also included maternal health and availability of a bank account as indicators into this process. What you will see here is that on the slide that states such as Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, and Madhya Pradesh, have had major increases in terms of prosperity or the reduction of deprivation. Through multiple initiatives, schemes, and programs, the government of India has been able to lift more than, as the ambassador said, more than 200 million people out of poverty. In the southern part of India, and India is a large country similar to Brazil and other places, is that we see that there are multiple demographic scenarios that are happening. So Kerala, for example, has the lowest percentage of multidimensionally poor households. But it's the same country, and we need to have differentiated programs as well. Next slide, please. One of the key indicators for educational development, and this has really brought people out of poverty in terms of the opportunities that it has provided. Education, access to schools, close monitoring of enrollment and retention of children within schools, especially for poor households. Specific focus on girl-child education has led girls to stay longer in school, push the age of marriage, and is improved access to the labor market for girls and young women. Affirmative action, in other words, reservation, has ensured that socially disadvantaged groups are able to get free or subsidized education, food, and stay in many states, and often are the first generation entering into schools. Greater investments in educational infrastructures, not just into schools, but also midday meals, teacher training, and improvement of schools, has led to a positive spin-off. The National Education Policy of 2020 shows great potential in bringing these achievements further. Next slide, please. Linked to education is also about employment and livelihoods. Rural areas have benefited a lot from the employment schemes. Specific focus on the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. This has majorly helped rural areas, farmers actually, who have had climate-related disasters, who could then get into infrastructure projects, who could still earn money into this process. So employment schemes, rural roads, connecting to peri-urban areas, housing and livelihood programs have reduced deprivation in rural areas. Urban improvements have been largely in the relation to services and manufacturing. A large part of our gig economy comes in this urban improvements, actually. We have had also major improvements in terms of protection to labor rights. 4 key codes that have come: Code on Wages, Code on Industrial Relations, Code on Social Security, and Occupational Safety. India is one of the few countries that actually guarantees rights towards gig workers. Social protection of gig workers is one of the key achievements of India in the last few years. It's not just about education and employment, it's also about reskilling, upskilling, and retention of skilled labor in the workforce. That's what we are focusing further on. The Skill India mission actually focuses on bringing skills closer and reducing the skill gap. Next slide, please. When we look at health and nutrition, another indicator within the index, improved nutrition towards the public distribution system, which was earlier a welfare-oriented system, but now is a legal entity, has actually increased food security, especially among the poorer households. Access to food grains has led to better dietary diversity. Midday meals within schools have also led to this diversity. And the National Food Security Act of 2013 converted this PDS into a right for rural households, or also for poor households, to have access to this food security. More than 3 decades of tireless efforts of governments, hospitals, and if you see one of the slides, pictures over there, that's with the drawings, that's an ASHA worker. These are our frontline workers. These are the ones who are really pushing for change. They are the ones who have been key in bringing down infant mortality rate and maternal mortality rates in our region. Next slide, please. In addition to health and nutrition, focusing on the larger part of rural India in terms of agriculture and farming, income support through direct debit transfer, the PM Kisan fund, which looks at receiving, the households receiving funds to avoid catastrophic expenses from money lenders, for example. government procurement of pulses and oil seeds, retention of the market intervention scheme, introduction of new technology and techniques have also helped farmers reap benefits from this process. It's not just in the poorer states, it also happens across India that there is more learning of states across each other in India. Many farmers directly and indirectly benefit from other schemes on infrastructure development, improvement of roads, improvements of housing, access to work. All these elements also provide other possibilities for livelihoods that were primarily dependent on agriculture. Next slide, please. So, when we think about reducing poverty, we should not only think about reducing deprivation, it's about reducing the poverty of opportunities. Opportunities of providing people the possibility to get to their full potential. That is what is the goal that we need to reach. Changing structures that limit people's chances to develop their capabilities and access meaningful lives should be one of our focus. Further improve access to and retention in education and skilled work. Here, reskilling, upskilling, and making sure that the skill gap is reduced is one of the big benefits. Focus on gender and intersectional mainstreaming. This is a picture from a Shakti scheme that runs in Karnataka. We have been doing research. There, women and young girls have given free bus rides. In the last few years, that has had huge impact. You can't imagine the number of women who are having access to bus. So it's not just about accessing buses, it's about accessing work, accessing hospitals, taking your children to school, for example. All these elements become part of these processes. So small initiatives have big impacts across the life course. Challenges do remain because we see within urban areas, informal settlements and peri-urban settlements remain still a challenge, and that's the next phase where India will progress in bringing water, sanitation, and housing to these particular groups. Next slide, please. So key lessons, what we've seen from the Indian situation is focusing on integrating the schemes. Earlier, there was a lot of fragmentation due to the different schemes running almost in silos. In the last few years, Indian government has been able to integrate many of these schemes under common umbrella options. Direct debit transfers transferred directly to the individual, to poor households, has made a major benefit because it's taken away the middlemen in this process. Greater financial inclusion, availability of bank balance is one of the indicators that the Niti Aayog took. That has had also a big impact because that puts women money or resources directly in the hands of women in that sense. We need to look at poverty beyond income, focus, as I said, on opportunities, focus on creating these opportunities for the diverse group of people. And India, as I said earlier, is demographically diverse. We need to capitalize on the dividend that we have, the demographic dividend that is the youth. But on the other hand, we also see that in the south, we will see in the coming years declining populations, and we need to prepare for that as well. So in future, deprivation or poverty elevation measures should have a multi-pronged approach, and I think we are on the right track. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor, for your very thorough presentation on India's experience in answering prosperity. Thank you also, Your Excellency, for making it happen. India's example highlights how multi-level governance, community participation, and innovation can work together to create lasting development. We will now welcome a very special presenter, Dr. Cheryl Bar Kumara Kulasinke, Deputy Undersecretary, Strategic Planning and International Division of the Ministry of Plantation and Commodities of Malaysia, to take the floor. We are particularly pleased to welcome Dr. Cheryl because she traveled from Malaysia to be with us today. So, Madam, you have the floor.
Thank you, moderator, and thank you, CFC, for giving us and Malaysia the opportunity to present on this very important topic. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dr. Cheryl Bar Kumara Kulasinke from the Ministry of Plantation and Commodities, Malaysia. This afternoon, I will be presenting on the Malaysian Sustainable Natural Rubber. Next. Okay. The Malaysian Sustainable National Rubber is an initiative that is a national agenda which promotes sustainable, traceable, and responsible production of natural rubber across Malaysia. It aims to benefit stakeholders, including smallholders, SMEs, and rural communities, as well as to encourage their participation by improving market access and supporting compliance with international sustainability requirements. This initiative is implemented through strong collaboration between Malaysia Rubber Board, or short MRB, Ministry of Plantation and Commodities, smallholders, dealers, estates, processors, exporters, manufacturers, rubber-related associations, and relevant international bodies. MSNR is applied nationwide and is covering all rubber-producing regions in Peninsular Malaysia, Sabah, and Sarawak. Next. MSNR is a sustainability recognition framework implemented to regulatory and enforcement measures. So this differs a little bit in terms of the approach, whereby it is a framework that is based on recognition and regulatory measures. So this sustainability recognition framework requires that license and permit holders ensure that rubber produced in Malaysia meets global standards and can enter international markets as a sustainable and competitive product, whereby the Malaysian Rubber Board, or MRB, is the primarily regulatory body with authority granted by the MRB Act 1996 or Act 551. So on display we have all the regulatory guidelines and SOP and all the conditions that are in place. So next. MSNR is enforced under the MRB Act 1996 in recognizing that sustainability of locally produced national rubber. There are 5 principles outlined in MSNR SOP which must be adhered to. Firstly, the first principle, which is no deforestation for new rubber cultivation. Secondly, rubber cultivation must be regulated by land legislation. And thirdly, environmental sustainability, whereby there is no rubber cultivation on peat soil after 31st December 2020, preservation and conservation of the buffer zone, as well as good agricultural practices. So in terms of principle number 4, there is a need for social compliance. No child labor, foreign worker who works in the rubber or plantation shall have a valid working permit. And in terms of principle number 5, there is traceability of the supply chain, whereby there is a use of the MSNR Trace, which is an online system that has the component systems of our all the components that is required in the MSNR Trace. And I would like to highlight on 2 principles actually, which are very important in our MSNR. Under the principle 5 of the MSNR SOP, traceability of supply chain, MSNR is recognized through the MSNR Trace system, which is a digital platform that tracks natural rubber from plantations to finished products. This end-to-end traceability enhances transparency, accountability, and compliance with global sustainability requirements, which enables Malaysian natural rubber to meet increasingly international demands for sustainably sourced products. Meanwhile, Principle 3 of MSNR, which is focused on environmental sustainability, promotes the adoption of good agricultural practices and environmentally responsible farming techniques that reduce emissions, protect biodiversity, and improve soil health. By encouraging GAP approaches, the initiative not only sustains productivity, but also positions Malaysia's rubber sector as a climate resilient and align with the global transition to a green economy. Next slide, please. In the Malaysian rubber industry, a smallholder is defined as an individual planter with a rubber cultivation area of less than 40 hectares. So rubber smallholders are the backbone of the Malaysian rubber industry, which contributes about 90% of the total rubber production. So as we can see, the smallholders numbers are 283,397. Next slide, please. Malaysia, via the Malaysian Rubber Board, has launched the MSNR Trace system on the 24th of June 2025 by Deputy Minister of Plantation and Commodities, Datuk Chan Fong Hin, a digital platform which is designed to enhance transparency and accountability across the rubber supply chain. If I can get the Secretariat to click the play at on the slide. So if you can see the little red scooter, it's going through how the MSNR trace system flows. Yes. So the as I was saying, the MSNR trace integrates several internal digital platforms developed by MRB, including the PETG, RRIM Geo Rubber, RRIM Niaga, RRIM Estate, and MyLasin. These are all components within the system. And this system enables stakeholders to monitor natural rubber transactions from plantations to finished products, helping to address environmental and social concerns within the industry. With innovations like MSNR Trace, Malaysia is positioning itself at the forefront of the rubber industry transformation and strengthening its role as a global leader in sustainable and high-quality natural rubber. Next slide, please. Okay. So this slide deals with the key challenges in the Malaysian rubber industry and what the MSNR initiative addresses. Firstly, in terms of sustainability and environmental concerns, smallholders and plantations often lack standardized practices for responsible land use and sustainable farming. MSNR promotes environmentally responsible production, including good agricultural practices. Secondly, in terms of traceability and market access, global buyers increasingly require assurance that natural rubber is sustainably and legally sourced. So MSNR strengthens traceability across the supply chain to meet these market demands. Thirdly, social and economic inclusion. Many smallholders and rural communities have limited access to training, capacity building, and markets. MSNR provides support to enhance livelihoods and encourage greater participation in the value chain. With the implementation of MSNR, smallholders' income can be increased through higher productivity achieved via GAP and premium payments from international buyers who prioritize sustainable products. This is in line with Sustainable Development Goals. Fourth, competitiveness and global recognition. Without a recognized sustainability framework, Malaysian rubber has risked losing market share to competitors, complying with international sustainability standards. Thereby, MSNR positions Malaysia as a trusted, sustainable, high-quality natural rubber supplier. MRB's response to these challenges is proactive and science-driven, integrating research, innovation, policy, advocacy, and stakeholder engagement. This initiative aims to ensure that Malaysia's rubber industry remains competitive, climate resilient, and aligned with the global transition to a green economy. Next slide, please. The implementation of MSNR initiative is expected to be a game changer in supporting the increase of domestic rubber production in line with growing international demand for sustainable natural rubber. So one of the concerns that Malaysia has is that about 40% of the total cultivation area in Malaysia is untapped due to prolonged low rubber prices, which has led to a decline in smallholders' interest in tapping. Through MSNR, The premium price assurance offered by buyers and importers can help revitalize smallholders' interest to resume tapping. And this is supported by the government's flagship programs under the ministry and relevant agencies. This measure will safeguard the income of smallholders while concurrently enhancing natural rubber production. Next slide, please. Before closing, I would like to share that Malaysia had successfully launched its first export of MSNR-compliant rubber to the European Union on December 12, 2024, with a shipment of 200 tons. This milestone demonstrates the success of Malaysian natural rubber, which aligns with global sustainability goals and requirements like the EU deforestation regulation. We have some brochures available actually on MSNR, and these are available at the document table outside. So feel free to browse. And with that, I come to the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cyril, for that excellent presentation on Malaysia's Sustainable Natural Rubber Initiative, and also the MSNR Trace platform, which clearly demonstrates how digital innovation, traceability, and regulatory compliance can converge to strengthen global market access for smallholder farmers. Your work shows how technology, when used wisely, can democratize opportunity. I would like now to invite Ms. Wang Yan, General Manager of Bank of China in Europe at the Rotterdam branch and Country Head for the Netherlands, to share China's perspective. Madam, you have the floor.
Thank you. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you very much for having me here to share Bank of China's efforts and experiences in poverty alleviation. China has attached paramount importance to poverty alleviation, implementing many major decisions and strategic initiatives. By the end of 2020, China has made historic achievements in eradicating absolute poverty, lifting all rural residents out of poverty, removing all impoverished counties from the list, and eliminating regional poverty. As a key financial institution in China, Bank of China has always taken poverty alleviation as a top priority, focusing on 4 core areas to deliver tangible results. To offer you a clear and in-depth view of how we translated this strategic focus into practice actions, today I would like to show the bank's practices and outcomes in 4 areas. Firstly, we scaled up investments in impoverished regions. We used a mixture of financial tools, industry poverty alleviation loans, project financing, and poverty alleviation bonds to address capital shortages. By the end of 2020, we had disbursed over 250 billion yuan in poverty alleviation loans, underwritten 10.77 billion yuan in poverty alleviation bonds, and provided 24.6 billion yuan in national student loans, supporting 1.8 million economically disadvantaged students. Here, please let me show you a story. This story comes from Yongshou County in Shanxi Province, a former national-level poverty-stricken county. Leveraging the county's resource endorsement, we focus on supporting the layer hay farming industry, which aligns with the growing consumer demand for health food. We extended over RMB 500 million yuan in credit to a project raising 3 million hens. Once fully operational, this intelligent and large-scale project is expected, producing 50,000 tons of eggs annually. It has already helped more than 500 low-income households in surrounding areas increase their earnings and has enhanced the level of agricultural industrialization, turning small acts into a big poverty alleviation driver. Secondly, we enhanced product and service innovation. Many former poverty-stricken areas still lack tailored financial support, so we developed targeted solutions for characteristics industries and vulnerable groups. Here is another story. In Lujiang, Yunnan Province, a K-roll revitalization zone and China's largest SOCO production base, we launched SOCO Loan, providing 13.13 million RMB yuan to support the SOCO industry chain. For tea, the second largest industry in this country, we offered a 2 million RMB yuan special loan to a local tea company for spring procurement and equipment upgrades. Today, SOCO and tea have become property praise and golden leaves for Lujiang people, stabilizing incomes and preventing falling back into poverty. Thirdly, we expanded the service channel. We are shifting financial services downward, increasing branches in former poverty-stricken areas. By the end of 2024, we had set up 60 branches, including BOC Fullerton Rural Banks in K-rural revitalization counties. This extends financial accessibility to where it's needed most. Fourthly, we conducted comprehensive assistance. Leveraging our global platform, we organized investment promotion conferences and cross-border matchmaking events in Shanxi, Guizhou Province, and other provinces. We also promoted consumption-based poverty alleviation, purchasing over 1.5 billion RMB yuan in agricultural products from these regions. Through overseas branches, such as Singapore branch and our Dubai branch, we helped Xianyang's apples and buckwheat enter international markets. At the 2024 China International Consumer Product Expo, we set up a targeted assistant exhibition area for 4 Xianyang counties. Visitors can buy Xianyang Malanhong apples, and supported apple crepes, and local intangible cultural heritage products, turning public support into direct consumption power. President Xi Jinping once noted that poverty eradication is a global challenge and a shared development goal. Looking ahead, Bank of China will stay committed to consolidating poverty alleviation achievements. Will align with national rural revitalization strategies, invest more resources, and explore sustainable financial assistance models. We believe that through continued innovation, expanded cooperation, and unwavering dedication, we can contribute more to building a world of shared prosperity without poverty. Thank you.
Ms. Wang, for highlighting the important role those financial institutions play, in particular the Bank of China. This is what they should and can play in supporting poverty alleviation. Your perspective underscores how finance can be a catalyst in inclusive growth when directed towards communities and productive activities. And with that, the development sector is populated by thousands of organizations, but if there is one that can claim real expertise, it is UNCTAD. UNCTAD has been in the spearhead of research on development, trade, and commodities for decades now, and it is my great pleasure to welcome our colleagues from UNCTAD, Mr. Musi Deleleng Arega, Head of the Productive Capacities and Sustainable Development Branch of UNCTAD, and Mr. Andrei Bolesta, sitting in the first row, Productive and Capabilities and Sustainable Development Branch at UNCTAD, who will present their ideas and overview on commodities and commodity dependency. And Mr. Deleleng, the floor is yours now.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. I'm very much impressed by your skills in pronouncing our names as well. My name usually is not that easy, even for my own native, speakers. It is a Highlander's name in Ethiopia. I have been at UNCTAD for the last 30 years, and if I speak about development policies, I don't think that I need PowerPoint presentations, and I can assure you I'm not going to disappoint you. But before that, let me pay tribute to the CFC under His Excellency Ambassador Sheikh Mohammed Bilal and his leadership, and the kind of historical relationship and bond that UNCTAD and CFC have. Let me also pay tribute to this great panel discussions and Excellency Ambassador for your remark as well, the Ambassador of India. I think what we learn, I will divide my presentation into 4 subgroups. One is, I think, really we need to take stock of the changing dynamics in global policymaking. It is an indication, this panel discussion that we heard, the 5 speakers now, it tells us volume. And this is not accidentally collected panel discussion. This is a discussion that's carefully selected to fit the dynamics and the changing global dynamics in which we are in. It is more interesting than I used to be a long time ago, but there is also more hopes and more transformation. Now, in the BRICS and BRICS Plus, we really see the changing global economic power. So the 4 or 5 speakers before me, they represented the powerhouse of the global economy, and they reflect the changing dynamics. I'm moving away a little bit from commodities for just 2 minutes, because there is a lot that we can learn from their experiences. What is the experiences that they shared now beyond the commodities in terms of policy dynamics? I think for me, 4 key issues stand out outside of the commodities issue. Number 1 is really policy sequencing. The series of presentations and discussions that we have, they clearly indicate to us that is a lesson to be drawn. Number 1 lesson is policy sequencing. Policy sequencing means putting all the efforts where comparative advantages lie, where a specific comparative advantages lie. That's, I think, number 1 issue. The second issue is relieving key binding constraints that prevent economies from taking advantage of the comparative advantages that they have. The 4 or 5 issues which we learn is also, it shows us the value addition of institutional coordination and collaboration. Without this, commodity-dependent countries will not make any good on the resources that they have. Vibrant policy coordination is critically important. The layered kind of intervention that they showed us, it speaks volume about policy coordination and the level of thinking, policy thinking, that went into those processes. I think the third key element is pragmatism. Pragmatism in a sense that putting resources, putting investment, putting the bank and the finance issues where it matters. So careful, deliberate choice of policies, investing in those policy areas where a nation have comparative advantages. I think that is the greatest lesson for all of us to learn. I think that is, for me, the biggest home take from this conversation. Just take Brazil. Brazil now is what's the 10th largest economy in terms of nominal GDP in the world. And Brazil is actually driven by agriculture and commodities. How they did it? Because they fostered what we call productive capacities, economy-wide productive capacities, which means tapping the natural capital they have, the natural resources that they have, accelerating the transformation processes by investing in key sectors where they have values. Secondly, also enhancing what we call it the entrepreneurial capabilities. That is, I think, the second pillar in our productive capacities narrative. And the third issue is creating synergies and linkages between sectors and institutions. I think that is the third pillar, when we define productive capacities, we speak always in terms of pillars. Number one pillar is the resources, what we call it factors of production or productive resources that you have. The second pillar is entrepreneurial capabilities that transform the resources that you have. And the third is international production linkages, which really creates and develop value addition throughout the processes. Now, why this is important for commodity dependency and commodity dependent countries? Because commodities, some used to call them curse to development. But what we learned from the experience of India, Malaysia, and Brazil, commodities are actually, they are powerful engines of growth if you have the right policies and institutions in place. Now, in poorer countries that we work a lot, commodity dependency is like economic livelihood of nations. It's nations, they drive exports, they provide employment opportunities, but more importantly, they enable governments to invest in, reinvest rents from the commodities. Now, if we don't capture the rents from commodities where it matters, building the education, the skill gap that we heard about, making the private sector dynamic, making available resources for the entrepreneurs, and supporting those poverty reduction-based interventions which we had from Brazil and India, it will be difficult for most of the countries that are lagging behind really to leapfrog and to make headway in terms of addressing their development challenges. I think the key other lesson which I forgot in mentioning is in most of the successful Asian economies, which we worked a lot, poverty reduction is not seen as an outcome. This may surprise you all, but it was seen as input to the development process. Poverty reduction is seen as beefing up domestic consumption, creating demand for the local production and productivity. That is where the strengths of Asian vibrant economies, both that have transformed their economies, lies. We should embrace poverty as input to transformation. Transformation basically meaning moving resources, productive resources from low-skill productivity sector to higher-skill productivity sector. Now, coming to my third section of the intervention is the problem of deindustrialization and the lack of commodity diversification, which entrenched which entrenched the problematic relationship between poverty, growth, and development. Now, if we don't diversify, our export sector becomes vulnerable to all the vagaries, all the changes in prices, the price swings, disaster, natural, whatever you have. It will impact our commodity sector. Now, the key to getting out of the shackles of commodity dependency is to industrialize. That is reindustrialization we have seen in Brazil, reindustrialization we have seen in China, and also adding value to the sectors and comparative advantage that we have in most successful economies. Now, BRICS plus, the powerhouses, 4 of which are in this, is actually by investing in the new industrialization. New industrialization means commodity-based industrialization, value addition, hooking into the global and regional value chains, meeting the standards that we heard from the Malaysian presentation, which means building institutions, having the right policies that will take commodities from where it was left on the ground to drive the growth and transformation processes. In most of the countries that I worked throughout my last 3 decades, what we see is the missed opportunities. Countries that have huge agrarian agricultural land, I mean most African countries that have 800,000, sometimes 80 million square hectares of farming. These are food-independent economies. I mean, they are food-insecure economies, I mean. They import food because agriculture was not given the kind of place that it requires in terms of transformation, addressing. Economies that say agriculture account for 70–80% of the livelihood, the local credit to agriculture sector is less than 1% in most of the economies. We need to address those gaps because the more we miss our opportunities, then that is where our progress, our commitment to address poverty reduction, our abilities to generate employment, value addition will suffer. Most of the countries, the local banks' credit to agriculture sector in most African countries is less than 1%. Less than 1%. There is no way to transform agriculture if there is no investment in the agriculture sector. Now, even from the public investment, there is the Malabo summit of heads of state that they wanted that the public investment in agriculture should reach 10% in Africa. Only 7 countries out of 54 have reached that level. There is no country that you can find that the public investment in agriculture reach 10% of the GDP. So the more we miss, that is the sequencing, the investing that we have been talking about, building institutions, the private sector, financing development, addressing those gaps that exist in many of the countries will come to rescue commodities and address development issues. One final point is if we don't foster economy-wide productive capacities, if we don't build requisite institutions, if there is no hooking into the dynamic private sector, value addition, if there is no electricity to transform the economies, if we are lag behind the rest of the world in ICT and digital transformation, there is no way for most of the countries that are, I think, 85 countries globally that are commodity dependent. There is no way for them to move forward. I will stop here. If there are any questions, I will be happy to address. Thank you very much for.
Thank you very much, Chair, because you did what we really needed. You put everything into perspective. I would like to underline just 2 things, that commodities can be a growth powerhouse if you have the right policy, and also that agriculture development needs investment. And I think this is the message that captures what we heard today. Now, it's time for us to move ahead and hear a few concrete examples on how policy transforms into practice on the ground. And we have prepared a couple of showcases for you today. And the first one comes from Goldtree Planting Naturals, which highlights the CFC's investment in the development of certified organic and deforestation-free palm oil production in Sierra Leone. Unfortunately, Mr. Jan Hein de Vroo, founder and CEO of Goldtree, was not able to be with us in person, so his presentation will be delivered on behalf of my good colleague, Mr. Peter Nielsen, Impact Investment Manager at the CFC.
Thank you, Chris, and you'll be pleased to notice that since you saw me last, I've put on my suit and necktie. So thank you all. I'm pleased to take over on behalf of Jan, who this morning unfortunately had to let us know that he's battling a cold. And on short notice, I was then handed a stack of slides, which I've gone through, and I'll do my very best to summarize what Jan had set out to tell you about. I think I'm in a pretty good position to do so because I was lucky enough to visit Goldtree, who we've been in conversation with since about 5 years. I visited them last year, and we've since concluded also our financing and put in motion our financing for Goldtree. So we've been actively supporting them and financing their operations since this year. So very pleased to then also be able to present to you what we're currently doing with those funds that we've been entrusted with by the member states. So as mentioned by Chris, my name is Peter. I'm an impact investment manager with the CFC. I've been responsible for putting the financing in place, and to this day I manage the minute details of it. I can go into detail with it, how we manage such a credit facility in the break. I'll spare you the details for now. Instead, we'll start out with a bit of context describing a bit the larger picture that we're dealing with when we're discussing palm oil, and specifically organic palm oil, which it is that we're supporting with Goldtree here. So palm oil is, when looking at the output per hectare, the most efficient and low-cost vegetable oil that can be produced. And it's currently essential in global food systems, both for domestic and local consumption, but also the type of oils that we consume here in Europe, in North America, and elsewhere, where we're greatly reliant on the import of oils. Organic palm oil demand in Europe for food applications currently stand at an estimated 135,000 metric tons per annum, but the supply falls way short of that. And that's the type of market gap that Goldtree, with its marketing name Planting Naturals, are built to address. They provide certified organic, certified RSPO, Roundtable for Sustainable Palm Oil, traceable, and basically no deforestation, and more or less guilt-free palm oil for European consumers. So I'll ask my dear colleague who's managing the slides. There will be a few fast skips in these. We have 30 slides, so some of them I will go over quickly. Here you see a bit the type of demand that's coming out of different oil palm producing countries in Africa. Sierra Leone is at the bottom, so it's a relatively small producer, but they're pretty big in organic. Next slide. A few more details, quite dense slide. I already provided you with the takeaways from this. Primarily, just recall the large gap for organic palm oil that we're currently facing in the world. So, not Organic Africa, that's another dear investee company of ours. I can explain you more about that later. But Planting Naturals Goldtree, their vision and their values, they have set out to become the world's largest and best-in-class organic and RSPO certified palm oil producers, built on farmer-first principles. You see a number of the certifications that they've set out to achieve, and they've gone quite a distance in being able to provide certified organic under a vast number of different organic standards. Next, please. So when I say vertically integrated, I mean that Planting Naturals, they control the entire production process from the sourcing from smallholder producers in Sierra Leone through Goldtree, through the logistics until the delivery to the processors in Europe. You'll see on the left side of this slide that as the CFC, we're currently providing a working capital loan. Working capital is that type of short-term finance on favorable terms that allow for these agricultural businesses to overcome their seasonal liquidity needs, which are so essential for agricultural businesses. You see also on the right, and I'll address that in a few more details a bit later, that AgDevco, which is the British financier, has recently come in with a CapEx term loan, so a loan for making more long-term investments into the improvement of processing capacities. Next slide, please. So, basically, Goldtree provided a new chapter for the palm oil industry in Sierra Leone following a number of years of civil unrest in the country. They took over a war-damaged mill and transformed it into the largest supplier of organic palm oil into Europe. They manage a 4,000 hectare nucleus plantation. They manage a supply base of collectively organized in farmer groups, 8,500 certified outgrowers, organic and RSPO certified. They have strong traceability and deforestation monitoring systems. In summary, they've become a leading organic palm oil company that's revitalizing the agriculture in a post-conflict region and raising rural incomes, addressing also some of the root causes of conflict. Now, CFC and recently AgDevco credit facilities have come in to support the continued development of this primary production and processing in Sierra Leone. Next slide, please. So, as mentioned, the heart of this model is the structured smallholder supply networks. So in addition to these 4,000 hectares of nucleus plantation, we've got 8,500 outgrowers which supply fruit to the mill of Goldtree within a 50-hectare radius. These farmers, as I hinted at just before, they're organized in these communal or collective growers associations where they have collective decision making, they maintain negotiation strength, and they provide also the training backbone for the delivery of training to these smallholders. And more recently, these growers associations have also become the basis for organic certification. As some of you will know, for the import of organic products into Europe, recently new legislation or regulation has come in place that requires that this be held, the organic certification, by growers associations. And Goldtree have been at the forefront of this development and ensuring compliance with it. Goldtree also operates its own nursery. It provides improved Tenera seedlings. That's a high-yielding variety, which is essential for improving on the yield and quality of oil coming out of smallholder patches. And they also operate a modern mill, which is currently being upgraded from being able to take through about 20 tons of fresh fruit bunches per hour to 30 tons of fresh fruit bunches per hour, using also in a circular fashion biomass energy for the energy needs for the mill. So the key message is that Goldtree, they operate this hybrid nucleus outgrow model, which provides resilient supply, scalability, and also reduces smallholder market dependency on informal artisanal mills by providing that market access into Europe. Next slide. In terms of the certifications, these are all along the value chain. So you've seen, and I mentioned already to you, the EU organic certification, the US NOP organic, Chinese organic, there's the RSPO, Roundtable for Sustainable Palm Oil, and also Fair for Life to certify the working condition of workers in the mill. This is an end-to-end traceability, and it provides competitive differentiation for producers such as Goldtree. This also means that there is a degree of decommodification of their product, which allows them to access premiums in the market and allows for more stable supply chains, which encourages even more investment into the supply chain because they can feel more or less comfortable that whatever they invest into the supply chain, they also stand a great chance to be able to harvest the benefits from it eventually. And that also goes for EUDR, which I'll address in a few comments later. So next slide. Just to point out a couple of the buyers. So most of these will only be known to those of you who might be dealing in vegetable oils. I'm not sure how many. You can raise your hands. If not, I'll just point out Rita. Many of you will have seen Rita Sport, at least in Northern Europe. This is a relatively big household brand for chocolates. So these are big names. And Goldtree, as a partner for those, have a lot to deliver on, and they're managing so far. So next slide, and here I will also do a bit of quick skipping forward. So I mentioned already to you that Goldtree took over this war-damaged estate in a post-conflict area, and they've now fully rehabilitated and upgraded it to modern operation standards. Now, there are still persistent challenges, and maybe we can just move quickly through the next slides. There is, in particular, and here you see some photos of the mill as they took it over. You also see that there's been the roads that were abandoned, the undergrowth of the forest had taken over, pretty much preventing the harvesting in the nucleus plantation. If we move forward to the next slide. A bit of the location, bordering on Guinea in the east of the country. And the next slide. They're also addressing issues such as the infrastructure. I mentioned to you also the issue of providing improved seedlings. So up in the left corner, you will see some of the differences between the various types of hybrids of palm oil. Some of them you have easier access to the oil that improves better economies. You have a shorter route to market for the smallholders through their investments in the infrastructure, and the processing is also increasingly being upgraded from the more artisanal to the improved efficiency of the mills. If we can move one step ahead. Okay. Now we're looking at what are the investments that the company has then been making in the smallholders. So firstly, you see here that there are road improvements. There have been 726 kilometers of poor feeder roads that have been mapped and surveyed, and they've been investing into improving all of these. This increases transport efficiency and farmer access. It reduces post-harvest losses, and so increases also farmer incomes from their sales. And new bridges, I think we can move one step ahead. Also, that's an improved road. One more step. New bridges, etc., also improves access to the smallholders during the rainy seasons. So again, addressing that issue of post-harvest losses. Then stepping one more ahead. Yeah, so looking more at what are they doing directly with the smallholders. Mentioned to you already, again, have a look. These are different hybrids of palm oil. Those of you, for instance, from Malaysia or other palm oil producing countries will definitely recognize these different types of hybrids. So there's the Tenera, that is a combination or a hybrid between the Dura and the Piscifera. This spread and the provision of these seedlings, hybrids, to the smallholders greatly improves yields. It also improves on the quality of the fruit, as mentioned, because output or outcome or efficiencies when milling it is improved. And in total, smallholders can see up to a 7-fold increase in yields on the basis of these improved hybrids, alongside the training that goes with them. Next slide. So here's an idea of the distribution of seedlings. Next slide again. There is an outgrow replanting. Yeah, and then I think one last slide. Here you see, there is quite a significant increase in these yields as mentioned. Now, why does it matter to the CFC to increase these yields? This is because even in the absence of gold trees, should they disappear tomorrow, then the diffusion of such seedlings provides a multi-year and irreversible productivity shift for these smallholders that creates a permanent raise in the rural incomes and stabilize supply chains. Now, gold trees stand a good chance at harvesting the benefits of such an increase, but to the smallholders, it's a permanent increase. So that's why it's of importance to the CFC as well. Now, this then translates this type of investment into smallholders into concrete economic and social and environmental impacts. So the figures up here are a bit small, but I'll just pick out the key ones for you. Annual payments to farmers have been increasing over the years. In 2024, they reached 1.4 million. There are 1,500 people employed in Sierra Leone, with 2.8 million paid out in salaries. There are 2,600 hectares of conservation area, of which 600 hectares are of high conservation value. Next slide. With the CSI initiatives of Goldtree through their commitments to the communities that they work with, there have also been investments into, and I think if we're lucky, there might be a photo on the next slide. On the next slide again. On the next slide. And on the next slide, of a borehole. Yay. So this is among the type of benefits that, in addition to the raffles, etc., that provide individual benefits, such as you get 50 kilos of rice, or you might even get a new motorcycle. An investment in a borehole can provide lasting benefits to entire communities. This is part of the CSR initiatives of Goldtree, which also include, in addition to the seedlings, the extension services, the group farm supports, the raffles, as mentioned, that take place on an annual basis. Now, next slide. The CFC investment. Now, why did we choose to invest, and why does our investment, or why can our investment make a difference in this context? As mentioned briefly before, for these agricultural businesses, and we heard before that they rarely do have access to finance to even these out, but they face seasonal liquidity gaps, and that simply stems from the fact that an agricultural business is a seasonal business. They need more money at some times and less money at other times. And this is where credit finance comes in order to bridge those liquidity needs and financing gaps. For Goldtree, the significant gaps are February and July, which is when they harvest their product or they buy the product from the smallholders, and while they wait for the incomes then to materialize on the other side from the sale of product to European buyers. Due to this liquidity need, Goldtree has not been able to purchase all of the available fruit from the smallholders. Hence, smallholders miss out on income opportunities and are less likely to invest into these future income opportunities. Farmers, in the absence of the market with Goldtree, which come at higher prices, premium payments for organic, RSPO certified, etc., have then been forced to turn to artisanal mills, which provide product for the local market, which is a good thing, but are also buying at much lower prices. So, as a result, this risks also creating a lack of investments into future productivity of the smallholder patches, as well as a reduction in the quality of that fruit. Now, what did the CFC then do? We came in and we provided a facility, a trade finance facility, to provide for year-round purchasing power for Goldtree. With our facility, we disperse funds when Goldtree need it. This means that they can buy during the peak harvest season. This ability to buy more fruit locally both reduces post-harvest losses, it improves on the income opportunity for the smallholders, it provides higher and more stable, predictable farm gate prices, it creates farmer loyalty, and in summary, we have increased and stabilized incomes for these 8,000 to 10,000 smallholder farmers who are more likely to invest into their own future productivity and income. At the same time, it also allows for Goldtree to invest more money into these smallholders as well as their own processing facilities, because when they know that they can also buy the fruit when they need it, they're more likely to invest into the facilities where they process the fruit once they have it. This facility has, in summary, allowed Goldtree to continue investing into providing services to smallholders, providing these hybrids, the seedlings, the extension services, independent of delayed customer payments. It has also attracted, or at least helped attract, additional investments. AgDevco has recently provided a commitment of a $7 million investment into long-term capital expenditure, which will allow for an upgrade of the plantations, will allow for an upgrade of the local processing facilities, and in short, for Goldtree's ongoing scale-up of activities in Sierra Leone. So, in summary, the CFC and our support, the support of the member states, has enabled Goldtree to be a resilient and EUDR-ready supplier, not simply a vulnerable exporter. In the interest of time, will leave out my EUDR comments, but I am happy to address them in the break afterwards. I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nissen, for demonstrating how deforestation-free and organic palm oil production can deliver both environmental and livelihood benefits. Thank you for wearing your suit. This is a sacrifice, ladies and gentlemen, for you only. But palm oil remains one of the most economically important crops for smallholder farmers across West Africa and Southeast Asia. With high yields, year-round productivity, and strong market demand, it has enormous potential to lift rural communities out of poverty when produced responsibly. In many regions, a single hectare of palm can provide more reliable income than almost any other smallholder crop. And this is why Peter's work on organic, traceable, and deforestation-free palm oil is so significant. It shows that palm oil does not have to be associated with environmental harm. Instead, it can become a model of inclusive rural development, restoring ecosystems while improving the incomes of farming families. And with this, we are moving to our next showcase, one of our partners, Akuvat Foundation. And it is my honor to invite His Excellency, Syed Haider Shah, Ambassador of Pakistan to the Kingdom of the Netherlands, to the stage, to take the floor and help set the stage for the presentation by Dr. Kamran Sams, CEO of the Akuvat Foundation. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you. The Chairperson of the Governing Council, Ambassador Bilal, Managing Director, distinguished governors, alternate governors, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Congratulations, first of all, for arranging this side event and for the speakers. It was very informative and useful. For me, it's a pleasure to introduce today a remarkable Pakistani initiative that has reshaped the landscape of poverty alleviation through ethics, innovation, and social solidarity. This is Akuvat Islamic Microfinance, founded in 2001, which is today one of the world's largest interest-free microfinance institutions. Its model draws inspiration from Mawakhat, which is a centuries-old tradition of brotherhood that obliges those with means to support those in need. Guided by this spirit, Akuvat provides interest-free financing, which is also collateral-free, to low-income households to build sustainable livelihoods without the burden of high-cost debt. Akuvat offers Sharia-compliant loans which are tailored to the realities of underdeserved communities, whether for microfinance, micro-enterprise, agriculture, or low-income housing. What makes this model especially innovative is its use of local mosques, churches, and community centers as operational hubs. In this approach, the advantage of this approach is that it lowers the administrative costs and strengthens transparency and builds trust between the institution and the community which is being served. And the performance of it is staggering. Over the last 2 decades, Huat has distributed more than 380 billion rupees, which comes to around $1.37 billion, to 6.7 million families. So you can see the exponential increase when you count the individuals. And it has maintained a very high repayment rate of 99.96%. These results speak for themselves. Ethical and interest-free finance can scale effectively and sustainably, delivering transformative social impact, and we have seen that in Pakistan happening. It is now my honor to invite Dr. Kamran Shams, who will be joining us virtually, the CEO of Akhuwat Islamic Microfinance, to share further insights. A few words about Dr. Shams. He brings an exceptional blend of public sector experience, corporate leadership, and long-standing social sector engagement. His multidimensional career spanning administration, institutional reform, corporate restructuring at Pakistan's largest private bank, and over 2 decades of voluntary service with Akhuwat has uniquely equipped him to design and deliver development models which are grounded in equity, efficiency, and community partnership. With your permission, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Kamran Shams.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your contribution. Dr. Shams, I believe that you have the floor. His Excellency introduced you far better than I could. One just small reminder, Akhuwat is one of the world's largest interest-free microfinance institutions, a pioneering organization built on the principles of solidarity, dignity, and social justice. Through its unique model rooted in community trust and delivered through mosques, churches, and community centers, Akhuwat has provided millions of families with access to interest-free capital, education, healthcare, housing support, and livelihood opportunities. It stands as a global example of how compassion-driven finance can lift people out of poverty at scale. Dr. Shams, you have the floor.
Thank you very much.
Can you hear me, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador, Heather Shah, for such a generous introduction. And I would also like to thank the management of CFC, especially the managing director, Dalal. I was really looking forward to be at this event, but unfortunately I couldn't make it because of certain things coming up which I could not actually bypass. So Netherlands is a wonderful country. It's a beautiful country. I've been to this place once and I always wanted to come to this country again, but maybe some other time. So today I would like to talk about the microfinance that Akhuwat is currently managing. I would like to be very brief and I would give an overview of what Akhuwat is all about instead of going into the details, because otherwise I cannot sum it up in 15, 17 minutes. So I'll try to be as short and comprehensive as possible. So next slide, please. So as Mr. Ambassador has already mentioned, that Akhuwat is a word, it's an Arabic which derived from waqat, meaning solidarity and brotherhood. And the paradigm of Akhuwat as an organization is all about compassion and support coming out of the meaning of waqat. It is a non-profit organization established in 2001 with the objective of providing interest microfinance to unprivileged members of the society. Next, please. Currently, Huat is managing several initiatives. I'll only, read those through, and then I'll focus on the first one, which is the microfinance. So I'll skip the first thing first, and I'll come to this later on. We are running approximately 600 primary schools along with governments. These are schools, then we have a university and a couple of colleges in which undergraduate, intermediate level educations are being given. But there is one thing which is important to highlight, that all these schools and university and colleges are only meant for extremely deserving and those students who could not have otherwise attained these educations from anywhere else in Pakistan because of the paucity of funds. Then we are also running a cloths bank, which is kind of a bank in which we collect clothes from all across the globe and all across Pakistan, and then we redistribute these clothes according to need and weather and etc. etc. I don't have the exact numbers right now, but the numbers goes in millions of pieces of clothes being distributed annually. Then we have the health services, and we have a transgender program. I would not go into the details. And Akhwat is also involved in a couple of relief and rehabilitation activities whenever there is any disaster coming up, such as floods or any earthquake or a disease or anything like that. Because of our outreach and because of our manpower in the field, we have the capacity to reach out to the people and deliver whatever services we can. So next, so coming to next, please. Coming to the microfinance. So actually, the reason for thinking about doing a microfinance project was the challenges that we found were present in the microfinance system globally and locally in Pakistan. Just to highlight a couple of these challenges, which are this list is not in any sense complete, but these are primarily the main reasons of thinking about the Huat and creating an organization and scaling it up. First is the high cost of microfinance. We have in 30% to 45% rates charged on microfinance in Pakistan. And maybe if there are other practitioners sitting in the venue, they know that this rate can go up to as high as 80% in certain Latin American countries and in certain African countries. So this is in no way anything which any microfinance organization should be proud of. I mean, this is absolutely absurd number in terms of helping somebody or providing support or being partner in supporting somebody and then charging 30%, 40% or 80% on an annual basis. This results in indebtedness. This results in compounding of interests, and which leads to so many social and other evils. And we have heard the stories of people even committing suicides, etc., etc. So I once met a very renowned person in microfinance sector. His name is Malcolm Harper. And he put all these things in a very beautiful phrase. He said that microfinance has lost its innocence. So this microfinance was actually created to have a benevolent transaction between a donor and a receiver. And the purpose was to actually help somebody, not to make benefit out of his compulsion or his necessity. So the whole business has drifted. The mission has actually drifted. So these were primarily reasons of thinking to create a mechanism in which we can counter these challenges. So this is the, I would say, the reason of coming up with the idea of Mawakhat or the organization itself. Next, please. So relying on, working on this while working on the idea of Huat, so we actually designed 3 core principles to work on. So And these three core principles are supposed to take care of all the challenges that I've already highlighted. And God has been very kind that I think we have been able to successfully able to counter these challenges by the use of three core principles. First principle was that the loans given by a Huwat will be interest free. Initially, I mean anybody and everybody in the world actually discouraged a Huwat to start the organization because everybody thought that this would not be sustainable if the interest is not charged for the operational costs. So having said that, we still started the organization, and the scale that we have reached, starting from approximately $100 to, as already Ambassador Haider Saab has said, that we have reached a scale of 1.4 billion. So I think this is a sufficient proof that traditional wisdom can be challenged and new models can be created for the benefit of the people, or the benefit of the poor. Second core principle, as far as our idea was concerned, was the use of religious places. When I mention the use of religious centers, I don't mean mosques. When I say religious centers, it means mosques, it means churches, it means any religious center of any religion. So what we are trying to do is that we use this extensive infrastructure. Just for your information, I'm sitting in the city of Lahore in Pakistan, and let me tell you, there are approximately 12,000 mosques only in Lahore. And I'm not counting churches, and I'm not counting other centers of religions. So this is a huge infrastructure lying all across the country and countries, I would say. And it is not utilized for the social benefit of the people. So what we are trying to do is that we are using this religious center for our transactions. So if we have to give loans to 200 people, we don't need to go out and hire or rent a place for 200 people. We simply go to the religious center, we sit there, and we conduct business. This conducting of business in a religious center adds to the sanctity of the whole process. So it's kind of a community center, and all the community activities which are supposed to be in these areas are being conducted or are supposed to be conducted in these religious centers. So while we are doing all our operations in these mosques, it is adding to the sanctity of the whole process. It is adding to the transparency of the whole system. It is adding to the sense of accountability, whoever is present at that place. It is helping us in reducing the costs that we have as far as the operational cost of doing the business is concerned. And at the same time, it is helping us create a sense of collaboration among people of different religions, because any Christian can walk into a mosque and take a loan, and any Christian can walk into it, or any Muslim can walk into a church to get the loan. So this in turn creates a religious harmony. And third, another important core principle that we designed early on was to create these microfinances on a non-discriminatory basis, irrespective of caste, color, creed, or political affiliation, or faith, or gender, or whatever. So please, next slide, please. Next. So working on these principles, starting about 20 years back, this long journey is kind of summed up in this slide. As you can see, we have cumulative disbursement of 380 billion rupees, and this was till November end. These are the updated figures. And in US dollar terms, for most other people sitting over there, this US dollar term is better to understand. So we have a cumulative disbursement of 1.4 billion with a recovery rate of 99.93%. And if you look at the central tab, at the moment, currently, we have an outstanding loan portfolio of 525 million US dollars in approximately 700,000 outstanding loans at the moment. But there is a very interesting figure on the left-hand side, if you may have a look at the numbers. Our total loan portfolio of 6.7 million people, out of these 6.7 million, we have given loans to 56% males and 44% females. And this distribution is purely on the basis of totally non-discriminatory on the basis of gender. So this is kind of a market demand. So we are not skewed toward any bias or any favor towards any particular gender. So we are absolutely gender neutral, and these are the numbers. This is the percentage of the people walking into our doors and requesting for the loans. Next, please. Just to give you a high level of the types of projects that we are handling or the types of funds that we are handling at the moment. So number one, these are the funds or the projects that we are raising, that we are doing out of the funds raised from general public for the purpose of doing microfinance. So if anybody wants to, support Ahuat and help people in standing on their feet, they can donate to Ahuat, and then Ahuat continues with the distribution of those funds, and the project is then dependent upon those donations actually. So this is the one time, these are the first type of projects that Ahuat is doing in microfinance on the basis of the donations that it receives from general public. Second type of funds or the second type of projects are the projects which are executed by Ahuat on behalf of corporate sector. We have corporate sector which conducts its CSR activities in the form of certain projects, and there are several projects which are conducted by corporate entities in terms of for the purpose of microfinance. But since this corporate sector does not have the capacity to execute the microfinance projects, so they outsource the execution of those projects to other MFIs, including Ahuat. Similarly, there are government projects which are executed by Ahuat, again on the same terms, because government wants to support people by doing microfinance projects. But since government does not have the capacity to, conduct large scale microfinance projects, therefore government actually need the services of other microfinance organizations to conduct their projects. So again, governments actually outsource their projects to certain MFIs, but Ahuat has, a leverage as far as getting these projects is concerned, because of its non-profit nature, because of its extremely low cost, because of its history, because of its geographic spread, and because of its outstanding recovery rate. Next, please. So all these numbers are achieved by very heavy intervention of IT. So we have kind of a paperless field operational environment, except certain areas, and we are also trying to expand to those minor pockets where we are expanding our operations totally paperless. We have completely app-based field operations. We have comprehensive web-based dashboards. We have geotagging of all the beneficiaries, especially the housing loans, because we have to constantly monitor the construction of these housing loans, and we are monitoring these housing projects on individual basis through our geotagging and pictures. And then we have a completely cashless disbursement and recovery process. But very interesting is that going forward, we are developing a very interesting AI-based, artificial intelligence-based, very strong system for borrower assessment and decision support system. We are very hopeful to create this system for maximizing our outreach, cost reduction, and increasing the efficiency. The system, which I think is going to be the first, as far as to our knowledge in the world, this will be depending upon natural language understanding, sentiment analysis of the borrowers, behavioral analysis through the videos, demographic data and financial data, etc., etc. So these are the kind of interventions that we are relying upon. I think I have already consumed my time, but I would like to thank everybody again for giving this opportunity to Ahud for presenting our case to the world. But I am here to say that uh, if there is any opportunity of any cross-learning from the people sitting in the venue, or if there is anything from our side that can go to support the other people, or from any other organization, if there can be any linkages can be created for any technology transfer or any support, we'll be all out for any such mutual consideration which actually could result in the betterment of the poor people. So this is only a list of it's a small list of awards that Ahud has already received globally. I'm not going to read through the list. I'm sure this presentation will be shared with the participants. They can simply go through the list. I think. So thank you very much again. You are on mute, I think.
But the Secretariat maybe can change the muting?
Yeah.
Thank you. Dr. Sams, I was just saying thank you for highlighting the powerful role of inclusive and interest-free finance in poverty alleviation and smallholder empowerment. I think we will all keep your message that microfinance has lost its innocence, but your experience with Aquasfat demonstrating how a community center approach can reach the poorest with dignity offers valuable lessons for all of us committed to building a fairer and more resilient value chains. At the CFC, we firmly believe that communities can be as powerful as the state and the market in shaping systems that work for people. If the free market is to thrive sustainably, it must recognize the contribution of all three pillars, state, market, and community. And your call for cooperation, I think it was well heard and well received from everyone in this stage. We can move now to our last showcase, the Export Trading Group, ETG, which was to highlight the active technical assistance facility projects managed by the CFC, focusing on climate-smart and traceable cashew supply chains in Mozambique and agroforestry and organic soybean farming in Malawi. Unfortunately, it has been cancelled. We apologize for the inconvenience and thank you for your understanding. But the good news for that is that we have more than enough time to go into a very thorough Q&A and an interactive discussion. Given the limited time that you might have, I will invite all participants to still keep their interventions short. Those who wish to speak are invited to raise their hands. For participants joining us online, please type your questions in the chat box. We will check them out. And I would like the Secretariat to open the chat box actually to be able to see the questions. Thank you. The floor is yours. Share in the back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Dilip Tambiraja. I've been associated with the CFC for nearly 30 years. I have two questions, actually, one to the gentleman from UNCTAD and one to Mr. Kamran in Pakistan. In your talk, you mentioned about the GDP contribution of agriculture to economies, which tends to be extremely low. At least that's what the finance ministries think, that's what economists think. And they say, look, we don't want to waste time talking about a sector which only has 1 or 2% contribution to GDP. This is a severe policy-related bottleneck people who are trying to shape policy at national levels have to deal with. How do we tackle this very, in a way you can say, stupid way of economic thinking, where people think that because it's 1 or 2%, it doesn't deserve any attention. And the question I have for Mr. Kamran from the Islamic banking system, I understand that the contribution or the donations they get is probably a gift, because this is how I suppose they are able to provide interest-free loans. The question is, at the end of, let's say, a life cycle or a period, do the people who donate get their money back, or is it retained within the scheme? The reason I ask this is about 15 years ago, we tried to set up a similar interest-free scheme in Sri Lanka, and we couldn't get support because people said, you're disturbing the market. You know, if you give a loan, you have to charge interest rate. And this has been a route that CSC also has taken some 10, 12 years ago, right? So I'm very curious to know how this scheme is structured. Thank you.
Maybe we can address first the question.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. I think that is very provocative and also sensible question, I must say. In a sense, that is what I've been talking about. It's a lack of policy sequencing. That is number one. It's the omission is because they were looking only the GDP contribution of agriculture without looking into the sources and drivers of growth. So I can cite thousands of countries, but just let me give you 2 countries that just recently completed a major appraisal in terms of policy outcomes vis-a-vis the commodity sector. Zambia, as you know, is a heavily mining-driven country in Africa, Southern Africa. Aluminium, coal, and copper. These are the largest export sectors. Now, the GDP contribution of agriculture in Zambia is only 3%. 3%. But 67% of the labor force is residing in the agriculture sector. Now, if you penalize agriculture because its GDP contribution is low in terms of investment, there is no way for countries that we looked into to address their development gap and their poverty reduction challenges. How can you penalize a sector that gives livelihood for 80% of the population or 60% of the labor force? That is where the diagnosis goes wrong. Now, if you penalize agriculture, the problem is this is the only labor-intensive sector in the lower echelon of the transformation processes. Mining sector is capital-intensive. There is no way to address the unemployment issue by simply investing in the mining sector, because the propensity of the mining sector to generate employment is very narrow. If you see the labor capital ratio of the mining sector, you will find for every dollar invested in the mining sector, there is little fraction that generates employment opportunities. If you don't generate employment opportunities for the largest chunk of your society, there is no way to address development. This is the diagnosis that we find in most African countries. For them to look into the growth dynamics. What drives the growth processes? That's the second point, just because I was warned that just to be short in responding. What we look at is also the labor movement from agriculture is going to the informal sector. And this informal sector is unskilled informal sector. This is not the high-tech sector that you can imagine. This is not, they are not going to the banking and insurance services when they migrate or they leave the agriculture sector. They are going to the wholesale or street, marketing, and this, what you call them is the traders on the chest. So there is no way that you can unlock the economy. In fact, in some of the countries that we looked into, it's not important to mention the dependency. Actually, they regressed in terms of socio-economic progress. They completely, because they penalize the agriculture sector, where they have huge comparative advantage, and that was that is the lessons we learned from countries such as Brazil and even India, China itself. When we talk of China, we talk of the manufacturing value added, that the global, because China is now the global hub for the manufacturing, uncontestable global hub for the manufacturing. But the basis came from the agriculture sector, the agricultural transformation sector. The Yangtze valleys, the Yellow River valleys, these are the valleys that provided sustainability for the industrial sector. The linkages between agriculture and industry, these are critically important. And if we don't foster those, there is no way for most of the lagging countries to really address some of the gaps and limitations. So this is the broader lesson that we are learning also from those excellent presentations. I think I better stop.
About 2 countries.
Yes, can I mention another one as well? Okay. Another country is also Zimbabwe, also in that country, in that region. I can keep listing also many countries, including my own, Ethiopia. For us, Ethiopia, I don't need the textbooks. I grew up in the Ethiopian economy, and I studied the Ethiopian economy several years ago, but still, the urbanization rate is one of the lowest in Africa. So our urban population is not more than 20%. So 80% is in the agriculture sector. But if you go to the credit allocation of local banks to the agriculture sector, it's not more than 2% or 1%. Even the investment in the agriculture sector, now it's coming, because now there is a revision of policies, they're rethinking, learning from other countries' experiences, but agriculture was forgotten for many years. Although sometimes the policies say that this agriculture-led industrialization, that is what really was implemented in Ethiopia in the last 15 years. But that's the policy. It has not been implemented. There's no change in terms of the dynamics, investing in the agriculture sector. Breaking the agriculture from the dependency of rain-fed waters and kind of things. No irrigation, no roads, no rural. When you talk of agriculture, precisely you talk about the rural transformation. When you talk of the rural transformation, you think of farm jobs that agriculture and rural community creates. That requires electricity that we made, the private sector dynamics. The same in Zimbabwe. It's a mineral-driven economy, but 87% of the population resides in the agriculture sector. 60% of the labor force is in the agriculture sector, but 45-50% of the GDP comes from industrial sector. What is invested in Zimbabwe is the mining sector. There is no, if you look at the manufacturing value added, it is on a precipitous decline, and it's less than 7% of the GDP. The manufacturing value added, when industry contributes 45-50% of the GDP, the manufacturing value added is less than 7%. It's a missed opportunity. So there's no linkages between the mining sector, the agriculture sector, and the industrial sector. And there is no value addition in the economy. The whole mineral goes out. In fact, some of the time they import even their own value-added transformation. These are the kind, it requires narrative change. It requires huge policy dynamics, a policy shift. We can't go the commodity-driven model is not delivering growth, but we need to invest in the commodity sector the same way that we learned from Brazil today, just to maximize demand. There are a lot of cases, Excellency Ambassador. We can provide you those lists, concrete examples where countries miss the opportunities of taking advantage of their own comparative advantages. Yeah, so there is no shortage of, I don't want to prolong the discussion, sorry, thank you so much. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Sams, do we have you still online to answer the last part of the question?
Yeah, here. So the question, as I was regarding the scaling of the funds as far as the scalability of the organization, and I think that's the crux of the question. So the high level view is that we have a pool of funds, and I would call it a revolving fund, in which finance is given and then received, and then given, and then received back, and then given again. So it is a perpetual fund in which constant microfinance is circulated. And as far as uses of these funds are concerned, one source was very rightly highlighted by the gentleman. These are the gifts and the donations, and these gifts and the donations are not supposed to go back. These are only one-time donations, which comes into the pool and then starts revolving. Then the second source of funds to this revolving fund is any revenue or profit coming out of any Sharia compliant revenue models. So if we are working on any profit loss partnerships, any revenue coming from that goes into the fund again. And last, but the most important and the major contribution is coming from revenue that is earned by executing the corporate and the government projects. So by executing these large-scale projects, Akhwat is earning a revenue which is then pooled back into the revolving fund, where it helps us in increasing the size of the pie, and also that money helps us in subsidizing the cost of the interest-free loans that we are giving to the people. I hope I'm able to explain the concept.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now we have, I think, a question from Her Excellency, the Ambassador of Nepal.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to the leadership of CFC for hosting this side event. Actually, very enlightening and eye-opening. I heard most of the presentations from my region, and I am very much impressed to see the achievements they have achieved. What a progress. Congratulations to all the friendly countries in the region. I see somehow, having said that, I would also like to perhaps see some such kind of case studies from the LDCs, let's say, because on these presentations, I see big size, big economy, perhaps advanced technology, economies of scale, robust institutions, capacity, market, so and so. For example, I was hearing the presentation from our distinguished panelist from China. She was talking about 50,000 tons of eggs for the countries like Nepal. I was imagining how 50,000 eggs it would, I mean, kind of. And then likewise, I heard a presentation from India. I'm very much impressed. I have some questions as well. And also from Pakistan, I saw a very impressive and kind of, I would say, whole of the government and whole of perhaps the private sector or country approach I see in some of the presentations. So I really learned a lot and impressed very much. And I also see some of the countries, they are not only producing commodities or products, they are also ensuring market in the European economy. That's what we would like to see from the CFC itself, because somehow, even in the primitive stage, we have been producing things for our own, consumption. Why now, why we are looking for such institutions like CFC, because, or like the EU, or many others of such kind, of such nature, because we are living in a globalized world. We are talking about a fair share of the benefit, easy access to market, support to the LDCs, enhanced capacity, synergy and policy, institutions, and so on. So I'd also like to see we as a member state and also CFC as an institution perhaps would focus on those areas as well. And some such successful story so that we, in terms of, I would not say my country small, we are between big countries, maybe we may look smaller in the map, but on average we are okay. The success stories of countries like us, countries from the LDCs, countries from the less developed world. And of course, I'm impressed to see some parts in the presentation of Brazil, somehow they were focusing on agricultural sector, but they were also linked with IT. That was, and then also kind of very, very well integrated manner. So that is, I like mostly I like that part. And because I was very interested to learn from our neighbors, of course, I hear from China and with India. He is not here, but His Excellency is very much there. So perhaps if it is possible for us to know, for me to know about the kind of affirmative policies that you have been implementing in your country, because in Nepal also we have a lot of positive discrimination or affirmative policies in place, but somehow we have not been able to reach to the height comparing to the many friendly countries in the region also. So once again, this is my first time in the CFC, so I look forward to engage more. And thank you very much for your excellent presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your kind words, and for sure we'll take your recommendations very seriously. And for this reason, I will pass the answer to my boss to give you a better answer.
Should we want to take first, or should I go? Please. Okay. No, thank you. First of all, welcome, Excellency, and in the interest of total disclosure, Excellency, the Ambassador of Nepal, they are also the chairperson of the global chairperson, the UN chairperson of the LDC group. So she is the leader, and big head. So on the questions of LDC, I think we really take this issue of LDC as a matter of not priority, super priority. And in fact, Peter with the suit, who presented our projects in Sierra Leone, and on the palm oil, Sierra Leone is one of the LDCs. And to tell you frankly, he didn't disclose this to things, but the owner who was supposed to make this presentation, when I had his discussion with him, I said that you are a Dutch. Why did you go to the Sierra Leone? Then he said, what's wrong with that? Because I am a Dutch, I know how to make money. And in Sierra Leone, when I do these things, I also have a good thing for my heart, because in this palm oil business, that you have to leave almost 70% of your value chain back to the country of origin, because this is not a product that you can put on your container and bring it here. So he thinks that this is a very good thing for that country. And they are doing palm oil. That means regular oil, if they get only $500 or $600 per ton, they are getting 13 or 1400 US dollar, almost double, but my cost is not double. So just giving an idea. And also another thing I also want to see in the interest of total disclosure, our colleagues from UNCTAD, they came here all the way. They are supposed to make a presentation, in fact, on the European Union deforestation-free regulation, European Union deforestation-free regulation, deforestation-free products, and that I think presentation was mainly focused on some African LDCs, because it's a CFC and UNCTAD. We make a joint study, And we are very grateful to our colleagues, to both of you coming all the word, but at the last minute, I think for some technical reason, they cannot make a presentation on this. But you have heard our colleagues, and I think we need hours to give people like you, because I think we can even have a dedicated session only to discuss this kind of issue. They are going at the core of why we are LDC in the first place, why we cannot make it this use of our own resources. So we also take this opportunity to thank you, and at some point, if you want to make an intervention, you're very welcome. UNCTAD is our kind of our mother organization, so we come out from the home of the UNCTAD. So we are very grateful to you and for all the wonderful intervention. But back to the LDC things, Excellency, this is your beginning. But if you want me to do more, you have to come frequently and try to be on our side. Thank you. With this, I'll give the floor back to Excellency Ambassador of India, and to make his response. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador, very much for your observations and comments. And I would like to convey sorry, my expert had to leave because he had some other engagement. So I will try to, I think, answer on his behalf. The question that you mentioned about affirmative action, it's of course, it's very, very dear to our policies, and it has been there for a very long time. You know this very well that it was Prime Minister Indira Gandhi who mentioned about Garibi Hatao in the 70s. But we had very mixed sort of, I think, successes, even though in terms of policy, it was always there. How do we reach a particular segment of population? But I think the difference, I think, started to come into play because the way we were able to put in place a system to identify who actually needed to be helped. And therefore, to create this system of identifying the person where our affirmative action has to be targeted, that came into play with the biometric, the Aadhaar ID, which Government of India put in place. This was a remarkable thing because in a very short span of time, we were able to get almost entire 1.4 billion people now with their biometric ID, and with the scheme of getting the biometric ID linked to the phone numbers, getting them linked to the bank account, and therefore what we call as the trinity of JAM, Jandhan, Aadhaar and mobile. Therefore, we were able to put in place a system through which any policy action would be able to reach the beneficiary. Now, very famously, it was said that earlier, if 100 rupees was again allocated to a particular scheme, probably only 10 rupees probably reached the actual beneficiary. But 2014 onwards, once this system was put in place, I think we were able to plug in a large amount of leakages. Now, I'll just mention two examples. One example was which central government started actually to provide fuel subsidy to the women in villages. And this was because, and this was for LPG gas cylinder, because they were all using the wood, and of course this was not only creating health issues, but also this was very, very inefficient process. So what government did was that they provided the cylinders at the market price, because otherwise if they had given a low price cylinder, it would have again someone else may have taken the money. So therefore they would provide it at the same market price, but to the actual beneficiary, they would transfer that subsidy amount directly into their account. And through this way, they were able to reach a very, very million, again, I don't remember the figure, but very large number. Similarly, farmers, again, we heard about farmers and how important it is, and still in India, a large population is still dependent on agriculture. And government has mentioned that this is their priority. So once government was able to identify who is who, therefore, for example, the Prime Minister has mentioned that he will provide 6,000 rupees of some support for a particular crop, but that support was sent directly into the farmer's account. And this has been already done a few times repeatedly. So therefore, this is one of the major things. I think all affirmative action policies in countries like ours is required, but why they were not successful earlier was because we were not able to identify the beneficiary. And now that we are able to identify the beneficiary and we are able to plug in the leakages, therefore these policies, the same policies in the same format also, they are more effective. So that's, I think, I would like to mention at this point of time, I think, for paucity of time. But thank you very much, and I would, of course, love to discuss with you separately on what we are doing and how we can take it further. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Now we have a comment from...
Just brief one. Thank you, Ambassador. We also work closely with your colleagues in Geneva. Ambassador Prasad Subedi is always with us. Actually, our division is a division for Africa, LDCs, and special programs. So we work very closely, and he is not leaving us unless we address the LDC issue in any of the work that we do. But let me, the value added of the discussion is when we were talking about the global shift and the dynamic in global economy. I think that is also talking about opportunities, just not to leave anyone behind. I think that is the motto that is galvanizing the international community. But more importantly, the market access. You see, the LDC category was created by UNCTAD, as you know, 1971. Now, we are in 2025, 53 years, but only 8 LDCs graduated. Only 8 out. In fact, the number now we have, originally we have 25 LDCs, now we have, I think, close to 45 or 46 LDCs. Now, this is a challenge for all of us. Did the international support system function? Why is it only 8 LDCs graduated in the last 53 years? Should we be proud of the kind of international order that we live through? And what is ahead for LDCs? And most of the countries that depend on international support measures. The market access for LDCs, I'm sharing with you, it's more than 30 years of work. Market access for LDCs has never been a problem. Close to 97% of LDC export items to China get market access. India, generous market access. EU, everything but arms for LDCs. Many countries, either through a special and preferential arrangement, market access is not a problem. The core problem of LDCs is productive capacities. We need to address the productive capacities. Even if we have market access, if we don't have the capacity to produce and sell, then the market access will not be, as such, a magic bullet for addressing some of the gaps. That is why the productive capacity narrative is a new narrative in the development architecture. How are we going to foster LDC's productive capacities? Meaning in the entrepreneurial capabilities, the production resources, and also the institution building, the production linkages, the energy access, which is defining the transformation processes. So unless we have these holistic policy approaches, which we heard from Brazil, India, unless we have these collaborative and interlinked economic systems, it will be difficult for LDCs to address. My entire life, I've been working on LDC issues, my entire life. But it's only frustration after frustration. When you graduate, like as if you are graduating your own son, your own children, that makes you happy. But when you see countries are lagging behind, even from where they were 5-6 years ago, that is most troubling for anyone working in these issues. But we need collective action. I know the role Nepal plays, not only in Geneva, but in New York. But this is not the war that is, kind of over, that the struggle must continue. So we have to address those gaps, and we should not leave anyone behind. This is not only rhetoric, it is in terms of actual practical terms. This is why we are coming with the new narrative for development, which addresses the gaps and limitations that we have been talking about for many years. Now, thank you very much anyway for your intervention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Do we have any other questions? Sir, please.
Thank you very much. I'm Charles Mawoshe, Minister Councillor from Zambia. Indeed, you are very right when you say the GDP, most of it comes from the mining and so on. Well, most of the people are in the agriculture area. This is very true. Now, in your studies, how do you reverse this? Because when you come to a country like Zambia, when people come to university, they'll go for mining because that's where there is money and very fast too. Because agriculture will take a bit of time. But despite that, you see, with a big land and a fairly good weather, people who want to invest will easily go to mining sector because of fast returns. So how do we reverse this trend? Because we know it's so. Majority of the population are in the rural areas where there's the best land. Now in the policy of not leaving behind, how do we reverse this so that people can go to invest in the agriculture in order to alleviate the poverty? How do we reverse it?
No, it's this is a kind of question. We have been with Andre. We have been traveling to Zambia many times. I think I'm glad that we met earlier, but I didn't know that you came from Zambia. Let's do small parallel, Zambia and Chile. You know, I'm much older than you, although you have gray hair. When I was a student, Chile was as equally dependent on copper and coal as Zambia. It's okay, so I won't tell you when that time is, but in the last 20 years, the transformation that we have seen in Chile is simply outstanding in every sector of it. They added value to the mining sector. They captured the rents from the mining booms. They invested in agriculture. Salmon from Chile is now, you can find it in any market in Europe and elsewhere. The wine, quality wine is coming from the agriculture sector of Chile. What I'm saying is, 20, 30 years ago, Chile's GDP per capita was less than $2,000. Really, maybe we need to do some comparison. By that time, Zambia's maybe even better than Chile's. But some countries, such as Namibia, has better GDP per capita than Chile by that time. Just I know the statistics. Today, Chile's GDP per capita income in PP terms, it is $26,000 US. In the last in 1990, Chile was as problematic as most African countries. The human rights violation, coup d'etat, all the problems that instabilities defined Chile's economy. In less than 30 years, Chile made outstanding transformation sectorally and also in terms of socio-economic outcomes. I've been several times to Chile itself, but it is remarkable. The same Zimbabwe, my favorite, Vietnam. Different issue. Vietnam was, when I was a student, the GDP per capita of Vietnam was less than $95. Less than $95. In the last 35 years, Vietnam became one of the vibrant economies, dynamic economies. Vietnam today is the third or the fourth largest producer of rice, from a population that is malnourished, as most African countries, to become one of the giants in terms of producing agriculture and transformation is remarkable, simply remarkable, unimaginable. That is what we wanted to bring to Africa. How did they do it? How did they transform the agriculture sector? What is the policy dynamics that could add value to the African economies, not only the mining, but agriculture, other sectors as well, critical sectors, the water and energy sector as well. So these are the kind of issues that we have been looking. I'm glad that you raised the issue. Had I been staying longer here, we could have discussed all the issues and kind of things. But there is huge potential for Zambia, absolutely huge potential. There is no way the country that has that vast land, arable land, the GDP contribution of agriculture is less than 3% of, the 3% in the country, year in, year on. So that must change. It's not to make Zambia agriculture dependent, but to harness the potential that exists also in the agriculture sector. And the linkages between industries, agro-processing, value addition to the agriculture sector. This is how jobs come. This is how employment, intensity of the sector increase. It's not only simply farming and producing, but adding value, transforming them, and also, adding the sophistication to the economy. That is how countries develop. That is how Vietnam was not exporting coffee, single coffee when I was a student. I can tell you, the largest export of coffee from Vietnam was not more than 2 million. Okay, it's really in 1980. Not more, that is exported actually to China and to some parts to Russia for the, for the ideological relationship that they had. Today, after Brazil, Vietnam is the second largest exporter of coffee. It's not only coffee, green beans, but also transforming. It's an industry, a huge industry. It's the same in other sectors, fishery sector, it's the same. It's the same kind of transformation. That is what we wanted to see in some of our African countries, some of LDCs, and kind of things. Thank you so much. Sorry, so I get fascinated, and
we are all getting
about the time.
We are all getting fascinated. We should have you more often here, I think. Yeah. With this, let's please pass the floor to His Excellency, the Ambassador Belal, for some closing remarks, and then we close this meeting also. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellencies, distinguished governors, alternate governors, my dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Fascinating discussions. When we began, the original schedule was from 2 to 3 p.m. Then we extended it to 2 to, I think, 3.5. Now almost we are going towards 5. So it shows the kind of interest that we have, because the thing that we are trying to discuss, as Mr. Musi has been saying, I think is going on for a long time. And if you want me to summarize the discussion that Mr. Musi initiated, I would like to say 3 things. Number one, first of all, we have to take care of our own affairs. If we don't take care of our own affairs ourselves, we should not ask for others, because it's a waste of money. So governance, domestic disease mobilizations, and our other issues takes priority. Number 2, international cooperations. I think, Madam, you're talking about LDCs, and Mr. Musi spoke at length. In the first, in the Istanbul Program of Action that was taken in 2010-2011, they made a goal of reducing the number of LDCs from 48 to 24 at the end of the program. And as Musi said, we know how many LDCs do you have. That means the international system, international cooperations failed miserably, F grade, when it comes to LDCs. So why? Most of cases is that if you reduce it, bring it down, because the commodities that mostly the global south are trading, it's mostly coming in the raw form, and there is very little left at origin. Value addition is happening on the upstream. So this system of distorted value chain is something that we need to take address. And this is why I think we need to kind of shout out to one specific country, that is Spain. I can see my colleague was there. In the Sevilla commitment, they made these things as a policy in the Sevilla commitment, value addition at origin. And this is something, if you want me to describe what common fund is, This is what we are. All your work is to do that, how you can add some value to your commodities and you can bring more income for your families. And to do that, we would like to continue this discussion of poverty alleviation, best practices in poverty alleviations. And the best practices, why we need to serve you with the best practices? Because when you are in poverty, the time for trial and error almost becomes a case of luxury. So we would like to see these best cases that we can have. China came to us, and China, I think you have to give us more. You have much more than what you presented today. And we would like to know more about these things. And we are, if you want, we can try to do it for the whole day and try to listen to this. India, Excellency, it has 250 million, and that is almost as many as the population of the whole of Europe. So this is no small feat, and we need to celebrate this. And we can only do it when we provide a platform and do these things. The regret is for the people like that our colleague from Angkor, they came with all their money. We cannot give them anything because we have to do it in a very sweet word called cost-neutral way. This is not feasible for a long time. So we are now trying to see and reach out to the member states, Hague municipality and others to see that how we can embrace this idea of hosting and once in a year this dialogue on poverty alleviations, best practices. Then you can go back home when you, at the end of this conference council, that you have something that you can scale up and share with your people. I don't want to waste your time any long, but I cannot finish without thanking my colleagues, right and left and front. I can see Zara over there. I think she worked extraordinarily hard, and she experienced one after another casualties, speakers falling sick, they cannot board on the flights, and she is losing her sleeps, and Amar colleagues and other things. So organizing this kind of events takes a lot of work. I would like you to please put your hands together for my team. And in the interest of our, I think, discussion that we had, I just also want to acknowledge Brazil in a big way. Brazil and Spain again, their program of Global Alliance for Hunger and Poverty. It's only started now, but it already showing a big kind of an, transformation that's going to happen, because what they are trying to do, they are trying to take us back to the communities. I think in one of your interventions, Chris mentioned about the three things: state, market, and communities. State is working little bit, market is working totally. The only thing that is not working that much is the communities. And that's why this Global Alliance for Hunger and Poverty is going to do. Their program for this, Basta Familia is something I think the world should try to replicate, try to things, because many people at times when they initiated, they thought that it doesn't work. When you give money to the poor people, they don't know how to use it, but they proved them wrong. There is nothing more than the poor people that know how to make use of the money. And there are other programs that is coming up. Please keep an eye on you, and if you have any role to facilitate that, this is the school meal program they are trying to promote. This is an amazing, wonderful program. Why? We know when you grow up in a developing country, how difficult it is to get a glass of milk or other nutrition that we need. And that is why maybe I'm far weaker than many of you. We want to come beyond that. This school meal program created for us in the Common Fund, that the school meal program is transformational for other reasons. Because they made it a law in Brazil, correct me if I'm wrong, that they're sourcing 30% of their school, the meal, food from the local smallholders. Can you believe what kind of transformation it creates to the local farmer communities, traders, businesses? So this school meal program, I think UNICEF is going to implement these things, is going to be a transformational. And I would like to invite all of our member states and everyone to be a part of it, because that will take us directly to the communities where we belong. I would like to congratulate all of our speakers, mostly our colleagues from the UNCTAD. We cannot thank you enough, and I think we can have you two of you as a speaker for the whole day, and we need to talk about these basic things. So please give our regards to Secretary General for making you two available, and also to our other dignitaries who make the presentation, our colleague from China, Malaysia. Malaysia, I cannot left out a country very deep in my heart because I did my ambassador posting. This another country. Give the example showing how you can make your commodities work for your people. They really wanted not only make for people, still they are trying to continue, and now they came to us all the way, tell us, Common Fund, what we can do for you. Can you put another hand for the Malaysia as well? Because when it's come to the commodities they worked with, like cocoa, palm oil, rubber, everything, it's initially the poor who are working in those kind of communities, they are one of the most poorest. And through their scientific interventions, through their targeted approach, I think Malaysia showed to the world that there is other way of doing things. So, lot of other countries that we cannot present, please let us know if you have anything, and we want to keep it not only once in a year, we want to keep this continuous dialogue. Write to us, reach out to us, so that next year, I think it will be on the 2nd? Yes. 2nd of December or something, we will be hosting again this event. Please mark your calendar and come in advance and let us know that how you can present the best you have, so that when the people go back home, they have something that they can take back and scale it up. Thank you very much.
And with this, thank you once again for your participation. We wish you a productive 37th Governing Council. Our work will start at 9 o'clock in the morning. We look forward to seeing you there. Have a nice afternoon.